Wike Fubara peace deal, what it means for Rivers State. What if one of the most bitter political battles in Rivers State is finally giving way to reconciliation? For months, the political camps associated with FCT Minister Nyesom Wike and Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara have been on opposing sides. But now the political atmosphere appears to be changing. A reconciliation committee led by Magnus Abe has met Governor Fubara for the second time in 2 weeks, and the message coming out of these meetings is striking. Former political rivals are now talking about unity. They are talking about forgiveness. They are talking about rebuilding the political family. And one of the stakeholders has even said that the only thing left is for Wike to put the final seal on the reconciliation. But what does this really mean for Rivers State? Could this be the beginning of a new political chapter ahead of 2027? Or are we looking at a temporary truce in a political relationship that still has unresolved issues? Welcome to Nigeria Wave. If you are joining us for the first time, please subscribe to Nigeria Wave, like this video and turn on the notification bell. We bring you political developments, analysis and the stories shaping Nigeria. So stay with us to the end and let us know what you think in the comments. The most important development here is not simply that politicians met Governor Fubara. It is the fact that the language surrounding the relationship appears to have changed. Instead of confrontation, we are hearing words such as reconciliation, unity, and political family. The Magnus Abe-led committee says its objective is to bring former rivals together and ensure that nobody is victimized or discriminated against because of past political disagreements. This is significant because the Wike Fubara crisis has never been just an ordinary disagreement between two politicians. It has involved political loyalty, influence, party structures, and questions about the future direction of Rivers State. So if the two sides are genuinely moving toward reconciliation, the consequences could go far beyond the meeting currently taking place. For Governor Siminalayi Fubara, a lasting reconciliation could provide political stability. A governor who is no longer dealing with an intense political confrontation could have more room to concentrate on governance and his administration's legacy. It could also potentially widen his political base by bringing back politicians who had become estranged from his camp. But there is another side to this. Not everybody who supported Fubara during the political confrontation may automatically embrace a settlement. Some supporters could ask whether reconciliation means making compromises that undermine the interest for which they stood. So Fubara's challenge would not only be making peace with the Wike camp, he would also have to manage expectations within his own political camp. The same argument applies to Wike. A permanent reconciliation could also serve the interest of the FCT minister. Rather than presiding over a permanently divided political family in his home state, Wike could potentially regain a more united political network. He could preserve relationships and give him an opportunity to remain influential in Rivers politics without continuing a prolonged confrontation with the sitting governor. But reconciliation also requires adjustment. The political reality of Rivers State has changed. Fubara is the sitting governor while Wike remains a powerful political figure. For peace to last, both sides will have to accept that the relationship cannot simply return to exactly how it was before the disagreement. The real issue is power, and this is where the reconciliation will face its biggest test. It is easy for politicians to agree that there should be peace. The other question is, how will power be shared? Who controls the political structure? How will former rivals be accommodated? What happens to political appointments? How will future candidates be selected? And when the interests of the different camps collide, who makes the final decision? These are the issues that could determine whether this reconciliation becomes permanent. The committee's promise that nobody will be victimized is therefore important. But the real measure will be whether that promise survives when political stakes become higher. Then comes 2027. This is where the story becomes particularly interesting. If the Wike and Fubara camps genuinely reconcile, Rivers State could enter the 2027 political season with a very different political landscape. A united political structure is obviously different from one divided by internal conflicts. It could strengthen the bargaining power of the political family. It could force rival politicians and political parties to reconsider their strategies. It could also create new alliances and change calculations across the state. But we should be careful. A reconciliation does not automatically guarantee electoral victory. It does not automatically determine who will contest, and it certainly does not mean every political disagreement has disappeared. What it does is change the political equation, and that alone could be significant. Could new problems emerge? There is also a possibility that reconciliation could create a different kind of political competition. When former rivals return to the same political family, questions of influence inevitably arise. Who gets what, who controls which structure, whose political interest takes priority? Those questions could create fresh tensions if they are not properly managed. So, the success of this reconciliation will determine not simply on the ability of Wike and Fubara to shake hands, but on their ability to build a system in which their supporters can coexist. Now, let's consider the Wike factor. One statement from the latest meeting deserves particular attention. Chief Ambrose Uzai said the stakeholders were waiting for the FCT minister to put the seal on the reconciliation process. That raises an important question. Has the reconciliation already been concluded, or is it the political family still waiting for the final endorsement from Wike? That could be one of the most important developments to watch in the coming days or weeks. A direct and unmistakable demonstration of unity between Wike and Fubara would send a much stronger signal than statements from their political allies. Until then, it may be wiser to describe what we are seeing as a reconciliation process gaining momentum rather than declaring the political crisis completely over. What should Rivers people watch? The next stage will be about actions, not just words. Will former rivals begin working together? Will political grievances genuinely be put aside? Will there be room for people who stood on opposite sides during the crisis? Will Wike and Fubara publicly demonstrate that they have reached a sustainable understanding? And perhaps the biggest question, can this political peace survive the pressure of the 2027 election? Because that is where political relationships are truly tested. The bigger picture is that there are reasons to be optimistic about what is happening in Rivers State. The two sides are talking. The Reconciliation Committee says progress has been made. Stakeholders who were previously divided are publicly embracing peace. That is a significant change from the political atmosphere that Rivers State has experienced. But there are equally reasons to remain cautious. The disagreements that produced the crisis did not disappear simply because politicians sat together. Trust has to be rebuilt. Political interests have to be balanced, and the durability of the settlement will ultimately be determined by what happens when the stakes becomes higher. So, is the Wike-Fubara peace deal a genuine political breakthrough? It could be. Is it already a permanent statement? That remains to be seen. And what happens next could have major implications for Rivers State as the country moves towards 2027. The real question is no longer simply whether Wike and Fubara can make peace. The real question is whether they can build enough trust to remain on the same side when the real political battles for 2027 begins. What do you think? Is Wike and Fubara reconciliation a genuine beginning for Rivers State, or could old political differences return when the 2027 contest gets closer? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this analysis, please like the video, subscribe to Nigeria Wave, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next story. This is Nigeria Wave, bringing the stories behind the headlines.